Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to a live quarantine edition of the Hawksbeat podcast. I have with me the baddest media team assembled.
Oh, dang.
What?
Excited. Look at that.
What?
I'm a hot dog up, man. That's my job. I had to bring you out, right?
Yeah.
I decided to assemble the crew like the Avengers and talk a little Hawks, talk a little sports on the platform. And I'm just thankful for you guys for joining us. So let me give you guys a little introduction in case you have joined and you don't quite know who all these beautiful people are. Let's start with Miss Jameelah. Jameelah is the purveyor of ATLHawksFans.com. She is a up-and-coming photographer to the stars. All around good person.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Lady J, what's going on, girl?
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And the check's in the mail because y'all, Jameelah's the only one getting paid for this. I had to share a little paying.
Normally don't do this. I normally, yeah.
Split that.
Take me out to eat.
Take me out to eat.
Okay.
I'm glad you put it out there though, so I don't have to hide anything. Thank you.
Yeah. So next up, we have the self-proclaimed sports tenista, Yakiri. Is it Thompson or Thomas?
Oh my gosh, you don't know me, Ed?
It's Thomas.
Really?
It's Thomas. I'm sorry.
Thomas.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Look.
I'm walking away.
No, let me tell you why it's my fault.
What's up?
Look at my notes. I wrote all my notes on an index card, and I couldn't read my handwriting.
Oh, the teacher can't read his handwriting. Oh,
Hey, I can't even read my handwriting. I'm like my son.
Chicken scratch.
Y'all,
But
Start it all over,
Yakiri
Professor. What's my go
Yakiri
ahead,
is the only
yeah,
person.
what's my name?
put some respect on it.
I'm sorry. Yakiri is the only person that can call me the professor.
Yeah.
She is a hustler, and chicks in the sports. If you follow them, they have like 8 million Twitter followers.
That's a lie.
And
But keep going.
yeah.
Instagram
But,
popping.
thank you for joining us, Miss Yakiri. It's good to see your face as always.
Always. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Next up, we have Miss Nia Sapp. Nia is all over the place. If you ever logged onto the internet, I'm pretty sure you've seen a Nia Sapp clip.
She's the clout god. Clout god in the
Right?
middle.
What?
Not at all. Not at all.
Clout goddess.
She does great work, man. She's a hustler. She's done a lot of stuff. She's doing a good series right now. I checked you out on the YouTube. Your last series, and I hope you interviewed someone from WNBA, right?
Yeah, Rashonda Gray.
Rashonda Gray. That was a good. I made it through about half of them because I was kind of watching it while I was at work. I was like, I got to come back and check out the other half. But she does good work. Hard-working young lady, and I appreciate you for coming on. And then last but not least, Malik Brown. He is the purveyor of Armchair Hawks. Coming in at 6'1", 180 pounds.
Hey, bring that down to 20 pounds, man. Bring that down to 20 pounds.
Yeah, but Malik's a media guy, and we all know each other from covering Hawks games. They all do great work, and I'm just glad that they came in to, kick it with me and just talk a little bit about, the media experience and just share some of our stories and everything that we got going on. So guys, let's start with the Atlanta Hawks.
Let's do it.
I want to start with that last game, the last game of the season. I didn't even go to the game. I was like, yeah, I had my intern go for me. I had my guy Ty go for me. And I'm watching, and that was the night everything just unfolded. Like you heard about Rudy Gobert. And then next thing you know, the season is canceled. I'm like, yo, I didn't even get to go to the last game because I was like, yo, I'll give this game to Ty. I'll go to the next one. And so I'm watching and I'm like, yo, Vince Carter. And everything is just it was just crazy. I don't know how many of y'all were at the game. If you were, talk a little bit about that experience because I wasn't even in the building.
Who wants to go first?
Just jump in there.
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I was there for the last game. I was there for the last game, and even before the game started, you know, we were all talking about the corona and whatnot, like what's going on around, and I think it had to be after halftime, a little bit after halftime, and the Hawks were down big this game. I didn't even really feel like watching the game after a minute. it was bad. It was bad. But I know a little bit after halftime, I know the news came out that Rudy had tested positive. And then like a couple minutes later, Shams had tweeted that Adam Silver, he had canceled the season. And from then on to the end of the game, I was not focused on the game at all. I was like, wow, they really just canceled the entire season. And in the back of and then you look at the game and the Hawks came back. And I was like, wow, bro, this is crazy. It was just so much going on all at once. And then, you know, the post-game interviews, everything was just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was wild because I didn't know that game was going to go into overtime.
Right.
The game did go into overtime.
Talk about
We
it.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, this
man.
would be the game that goes into overtime,
Right.
of course. Like, because
So
I was kind of like heading to the back, so I was like getting ready, and then that's when like everybody was like, this is it, and everybody was chanting for Vince Carter because they were like, this might be the last time we'll see Vince. We gotta see Vince. Like the atmosphere was weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
So what was the mood like in the locker? And I'm just kicking myself, guys, because like I legit was like, yo, man, I'm gonna get tired of covering this game and I'm gonna be at the next one. And now it's like I missed Vince's last game. Like I was just kicking myself. But what was the feel like in the post game? Like uncertainty. Like what was the feel like?
Oh my gosh, that whole night. I mean, the mood was. What is it safe to say? Somber. It was kind of like we were sad, but yet we didn't know what to expect. Because I remember, Malik, you were sitting by me, right? And I'm sure Jameelah was on my left side, as she always is. And I remember, like at halftime, I did go downstairs, and I got the word, you know, this is Vince's last game. So I remember going back upstairs and telling everyone, like, I think this may be it. And then, of course, we all knew about, you know, the cancellation of the season. And then I just remember going to the locker room, and it was not locker room, I'm sorry, the press room, because that's where we were allowed. Remember, we could
They
only
didn't give you a locker room
room
access?
Oh, wow.
get into the locker room. And they were bringing the players out to us, and one by one. Who was first? Was it Trey? Did Trey come out first? Do y'all remember? Or John? I can't remember.
Was it John?
Or was it Coach? Who was it?
Coach came out first.
Yeah. And then I
Coach
think it
came
might
out
have been
first.
John after that.
Yeah, John. And then was it Trey? And then Vince was last, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, that whole night, we were there for what, a good 2 hours, right? It was.
I'm sure you were. Vince was. It was
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a minute. I
You
mean,
say the best for last, right?
Yeah.
You say the best for last.
Got a lot of sound, huh?
It was weird. It was weird. It was, to me, it was kind of like we just didn't know, I think, what was going to happen after that. Jameelah and DNA Sports Done, we were all kind of sitting there. Remember, we sat there like after.
yeah, we're just sitting there, just waiting,
Shocked.
thinking, like, shocked.
Like,
I don't know. It just,
right.
everything seemed like it escalated so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, at first, it was like, you can't, like, touch any of the players. You can't dap anybody up. You can't do any of this. And then it was like, as we went along, it was like, you can't go in the locker room. They're going to bring them out. And then it was like, oh, the season is being suspended. And we were like, what? Like, yeah, it was just, everything just seemed to happen so fast. Like,
so fast. Not to mention, hand sanitizers was everywhere.
That's true.
Y'all should have grabbed some.
They put it everywhere.
Right.
And then that's when Dwayne Dedman had the big one. He was giving it to the teammates.
It was
crazy. It was a crazy night. But can I say this one thing, guys? And I promise I'll be quiet and let you guys have a chat. That night, the most memorable moment of that night is I saw Ryan Cameron, right? And I joked with him. I was like, Ryan, you got your hand sanitizer? He was like, man, I got a gallon. You need some? And I was like, no, I think we good. And I remember, like, I was trying to, go back to go through the tunnel, and he was like, just go ahead. Just go. What? Don't let me walk first. You just go ahead. But I remember that was kind of my last real vivid memory. And I just want to, give a shout out and prayers up to Ryan Cameron, because, he is a legend for ATL. I haven't spoke about it since, it happened. But again, we got to send up prayers to the voice of the Falcons, voice of the Atlanta Hawks.
Right.
Hey, Ryan King, that's what he is.
Atlanta radio.
For sure.
Amen.
No doubt, man. He is the embodiment of Atlanta. Like, you can't have the Atlanta discussion without Ryan Cameron.
Right.
So glad to see that he's on the mend, on the uptick. And prayers for his recovery. Let's talk a little bit about Vince, you guys. We were treated in like what I try to do a lot of the times as media when I talk or when I have a podcast and just even in conversation is give the fans an idea of what it's like behind the curtain, because you're given access to these guys and, the public, and sometimes you can take it for granted, you know what I'm saying? And like, I want to hear you guys, like, what are some like Vince Carter, like memories that you've shared or run-ins with Vince that you've had in last 2 years? I know when he hit, what was it, 25K, or was it his milestone when he scored? That was a special night. But Vince, I mean, he's just like we legit got to cover an icon for like the last 2 years. But so shoot me some of your Vince stories, man.
JJ should go first.
I mean, it's wild for me. Anybody who knows me knows, like, Vince Carter. Before I was even like interested in basketball like that, Vince Carter was like my favorite player. But it was on some like, oh, he was in the band, and I was like, oh, I'm in the band too. He played saxophone. I'm like, I play saxophone too. So I like Vince for other reasons other than basketball. So then when I started like basketball, and I was like a Nets fan, so it kind of like eventually became like, oh, I really like Vince Carter. So when he started to play for the Hawks, I was like, this is unreal. Like, I was legit in shock when the Hawks when they sent out the press release. I'm like, Vince Carter? Like, I told people my job, they were like, you still playing? And I'm like, yeah. Like, so it was just crazy. So to be able to be around him for his last years playing, like, it's just, I mean, it's still kind of unbelievable. And some of the best conversations I've had with him were just not even on camera. It was like on some casual, like, hey, Vince, did you watch this game yesterday? Or did you do this? And he was just so like cool, like, and he would just talk to you. He wasn't like in a rush to get out of there. He would just,
he wasn't in no rush.
Right.
No, he had time.
Be the last one in there.
You could just talk to him, like, he was just cool. And I'm like, this is Vince Carter, but he's all right. Like, he's one of the very few players that I would get starstruck around. Like, I mean, I was legit like, and then once you talk to him, you're like, it's just Vince. Like, Vince, cool. Like, you don't have to be like that. So I don't even know like a particular story. I think when I told him like I was a big fan of his, and because he was in the band, and he was like telling me like behind the scenes story, he was like, oh, like such and such was telling me not to do this when I was in college, and that, and I was like, what? This is crazy. And I'm like, can I record this? But no, let's just talk. Like, it was just cool to just talk to him. So yeah, that's all I got.
Vince always had stories. Now, if you went to talk to Vince, you better make sure you had good positioning. And you better make sure you had enough space on your phone. Vince, and you guys are laughing because you know I'm telling the truth.
No, it's the truth.
You ask Vince one question, he'd be like, well, back in 98, when I was a rookie, but he had the best stories, and like,
I remember everything so vividly. Like,
yeah.
Do you guys remember on Media Day, I think it was last year or his first year, he talked about when he was following Tiger Woods when they won the Masters and how they had like the same agent back in the day. I was like, this is gold. Like, this man, it was story time with Vince, man. He was so cool, man. It was just a legend, man. A legend.
A legend for sure. I think my most memorable moment of Vince, and Jameelah was there with me because she put me on blast. And you know where I'm going with this. so weird. I normally don't get starstruck at all. Vince Carter, I was about to ask him a question, and the question, I guess he had finished up, and Jameelah stopped him. He was like, Vince, Yakiri has a question. And and for like 2, 3, 4 seconds, so I finally pushed it out. But no, the last 2 years has been nothing but a pleasure just to see that icon, just to even think, of course, I'm like the old kid on the block, the 90s kid, and growing up seeing Vince close to my age, still doing what he do, knowing when I try to get out the bed, my knees sometimes hurt, and looking at him like, how do you do that? So that was nothing but admiration, just to see that him being of a certain age, still going, still doing some things that most of us cannot do anymore. It was amazing just to see him and the stories that he told. I think one of the most memorable moments was when Kobe passed away, and he sat down and shared those intimate stories with us.
Oh yeah,
that was
he
like
was so real about it.
He was right.
He was like, when we were playing, I didn't really like him. Like he was real. Like
right.
Yeah,
amazing. It was amazing for us to be able to cover that. That was a blessing.
For me, it was when, again, I think that, and I'm trying to remember what milestone he hit when he scored. I don't know if it was like, I did, but you guys remember the night where he scored that bucket, and it was like Vince Carter night. He scored it on a dunk, and the time that he took with the media afterwards. And, Vince was never in a rush. He talked about how he got to play with all of these legends going up. And then at the end, shout out to Garen, Hawks PR, he let us take a picture with Vince. And for those of you in the media know, like, you don't really take pictures with athletes. That's just part of the protocol.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, that moment where Vince is taking a picture with us. I don't know how I got like in the back row, like Jameelah's up in the front. Like, I don't know how she got in the front. But like, I ended up in the back, but I didn't care because I got my little head up in that spot. But it was just a dope moment, and I'm really gonna miss covering a guy like him. And I hate that it had to go out like this, but he's such a good dude, man. I know that he's gonna prosper and wherever he goes next. Shifting gears, I wanted to talk, and we talk about like this media experience, and I wanted to talk about the kind of the media beginnings, the humble beginnings. And I want to kind of start with the young pups, with Nia and Malik, who are kind of newer, they don't have the years under the belts like the grizzled veterans. Like, and Nia specifically, talk a little bit. Now, you guys both started covering the Hawks as a result of the Crush, of course, Sports Talk. Shout out to our guys, Maceo and Glaze.
Shout out.
Talk about
boys.
Yeah, those are our guys, man. Those are our guys. Yeah, talk about like how when you first started, your first Hawks game, if you can remember the jitters, and like talk about that experience and what it was like.
Oh my gosh, I remember I was so nervous because, of course, like for me, I've been in school out of state for 4 years. I was playing basketball and stuff, so I never got a chance to go home. So when I first started covering this season, I was texting Malik like, where do I go? What do I do? Because when I worked for the
tunnel, go down the tunnel, and there's a side door.
Now, see, I remember the media door. I remember the media door because when I used to be a ball kid for the Dreams, that's where my mom had to drop me off. So I was a little familiar. But I think for me was like knowing, okay, we got pregame, presser, you got shoot around. It was just like a lot of different things. I was able to follow and kind of get with it, but it was exciting. I was so nervous, but also very excited because I got the chance to finally cover like my hometown professional basketball team, that I grew up watching, that I knew about, but now like I'm really on the other side covering the Atlanta Hawks, and it may not seem as exciting to a lot of people because when they think about the Hawks, they think about the Hawks, but I'm like, this is my hometown team and we're very special and we're very young. So it was a blessing. I'm hoping to get more years like y'all, but it was great.
That's awesome. And I'll say this before I go to you, Malik. the reason why I kind of gravitated towards Nia and Malik, because there's some people that get access. There's some people that get access to covering a game and they don't take it seriously, you know? And one thing that I noticed about Nia and Malik, like they were serious about the content. They were serious about, you know, covering the game, not just like, oh man, I'm around all these stars, you know what I'm saying? Because some folks, I mean, we all know, we're not gonna shout no names out, but you know, some folks are just there just to get their picture taken or to say, oh, look at my press pass, I'm at the game.
Right.
As opposed to the folk who be in their work. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So like after the game, you know, I see Nia doing the little post game and like cussing at herself because she can't get it right. You know, Malik the same way, you know what I'm saying? He was trying to do little
Let me tell you,
raps.
E-Dub was my coach though. You were my coach because you were so supportive. It was between you and the custodial staff. They were in there like, girl, this is take number 200. I'm like, get it. So I appreciate, you know, of course, all of the feedback. And of course, I would be so nervous doing these. I know what happened in the game, but I'd be like, oh, I forgot to say this. I forgot to say that. So I appreciate you.
And, you know, it was just, you know, it's not easy, you know, but, you know, a lot of times you'd be like, man, it'd be like, it's like 12 o'clock because you stayed late listening to Vince Carter talk about something. So it's like late. You're trying to wrap up the thing, but, you know, I appreciated how y'all attacked the craft as somebody who was young and in their 20s. Like Malik, talk about your experience when you first got started covering the Hawks. Like, how did you feel? Like, what did it look like and feel like?
I think really the Hawks was probably the team that, I don't know, like in terms of like stature, like that, it was up there for me because I covered like Georgia State games, but it wasn't nothing like Hawks game or anything like that. I think the one thing I was really worried about was where I was gonna park and how I was supposed to, where I'm gonna get in. Like those are the things I was really worried. I'm always worried about those things before I get like anywhere new. I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, where I'm supposed to sit. So after I got through all that, I mean, you go upstairs and you see all these people that you've seen on Twitter, Facebook. I know I had already seen Jameelah and Yakiri at the radio station, so I already knew about them. So I was more comfortable. And then E-Dub, I've seen you on Twitter a couple of times with your podcast or whatnot. So I mean, you see familiar faces and you start, you know, feeling like you're at home basically. Like this is you know these people. You see them all the time talking about the Hawks. You connect with them on social media. So you get really comfortable after being there a couple of games, honestly.
Yeah, and you do kind of gravitate to each other, especially those that are there like on a consistent basis. Right. I know I always, once I started to get a little bit of tenure, I'd always like, if I see somebody young, I'd always try to say something to them. Hey, you know what to do? Like I saw some people, like some guys taking pictures of the credentials and putting it on Instagram. I'm like, yo, man, you don't want to do that. Like Garen was like, you know, just putting folk on game, but sometimes they just don't know, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And just kind of schooling cats, you know. Jameelah and Yakiri, I'm curious as to your humble beginnings, because you guys I came a year after Jameelah and Yakiri. What year did you start?
This is probably the 4th year that I've been covering the Hawks. It's been about 4 years. Okay. Yeah, about 4 years.
So what was it like when you guys first got started? Because I know when I first started, I was like on Jameelah's back. Like I was like, so where do we go now? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, she was so helpful and I mean, I just followed her and she knew everybody. And so that was the approach I took. Like introduced me to like everybody. And that was good because when I took an intern to a game one time, a guy from college. And after the game, I was like, okay, so what'd you experience? And he was like, well, one thing I noticed is that you spoke to everybody, from the security guards to the people doing. He was like, that's important. I was like, that's important. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Relationships are everything, because in the media business, you always get those people who be like, hey, take me to a Hawks game. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. But, you know, Jameelah, talk about your experience when you first started.
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to think. I actually started covering community events first. So I wanted to get in and I wanted to cover sports, like the games, but it was difficult. And I just started, I was like, oh, what are they going to have? So I think I went to something that Larry Drew had. He had something like during the summer, and then I interviewed him, and then I went to Jeff Teague's something, and then like I had interviewed Damian Wilkins before that. So like that was kind of my way of kind of getting familiar with everybody and kind of talking to people. And then from meeting Larry Drew, that's when I kind of got in with PR, and I was talking about them and talking to them about covering games. And so that's when I started, and I started in, what was it, 2012? 2012, something like that. But I started like kind of mid-season, so I started game by game. So I had no clue what I was doing, no clue anything. And New Bias actually
Shout out to the Bias.
Yeah, he's pretty big and like helping me and showing me the ropes and showing me around and stuff. So it's always like that at least one person that'll kind of like take you under their wing and like show you things. So he was the person for me like that first year, because I was like going in there. I mean, I wasn't even covering sports. Like I had like a totally different day job, and I still do, but like I was doing something totally different. So this is my first time covering sports in general. So for me to go like from just kind of like blogging about it to actually going to the games, that was like some major that I was not used to, not expecting. So
yeah, I mean, relationships are everything. And shout out to Nabias, because Nabias, you know, he helped me too. Like he was like, yo, this guy, just showing you the ropes, knowing how different people are. And I got some good Nabias stories, man. Nabias was a bulldog. And I remember when I first started him and, Jameel, what was the guy's name that wrote for the AJC?
Viv.
Chris Vivamore. Those two mixed like oil and water. Let me, and I don't know if Yakiri was here when Chris Vivamore was the lead reporter, but Vivamore, after the game, he would always ask like the first 5 questions, and I don't know why. I guess because we were young, we would always just let him. We would just like Coach Bud would come into a game. He would come after the game, and like we would just be quiet. We would wait for Viv to talk. And it's crazy now that you see the maturation. Now we're all more vocal and not afraid to ask that first question, not to ask, you know, because like, and y'all know me, like I don't care. Like I'll ask a question without a mic.
Right.
We know.
Your voice projects.
What was the teachable moment here?
Yeah. So that Lloyd Pierce press conference that went viral, when it was like 16 seconds, and Lloyd was like, "I don't got nothing," and I promise you, I tell this to my grave. I promise you, I felt him looking at me, and I felt like I gotta say something. I was like, "What's the teachable moment?" He's like, "There is none."
Right.
And then there was like 5 seconds of quiet, and Darren was like, "All right, we're done."
So I'll wrap it up.
But I mean, it's just been a shout out to the Hawks PR, man. They are some good folks, Darren and
they are
Jelani and Steinberg. I mean, they do an amazing job keeping guys, you know, kind of like mid-tier like us, you know, who want to get the content. They keep us involved and stuff. So shout out to them.
Oh wait, I do also want to shout out Bob Rathman, because he was the one that gave me the idea to even start a blog about the Hawks. Like I was just tweeting about the Hawks, and he was like, "Why don't you?" And Melanie, who I used to do the site with, he was like, "Why don't you guys start a blog?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm not doing really anything else." So that is what like catapulted me into everything. Like, so he was tremendous.
And people always talk about like, how did you get started? And it's like, it's really a simple process. I mean, like it's just an idea that you have to go after it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are scared, they're timid of failure, and you just got to go after it. And shout out to Bob and shout out to Dominique. Right. Like people don't understand how many handshakes Dominique does before a game. Dominique knows everybody in the city of Atlanta.
Right.
But I mean, those guys are legends, but they're so humble and just so sweet. And so shout out to those guys. I'm curious, and I don't know what Nia or Malik will have. Maybe this would be more of a Yakiri or Jameelah question. Your top moment as far as like covering a game, like what's the moment, or even if you've had one, I don't know if Malik and Nia have been covering long enough where you've been like, oh, I will never, ever forget this game. Like, do you guys have like a moment in mind? Because I know I got at least 2, maybe 3 that I just come off the top. You guys got any moments of games you'll just never forget?
I have a few, but I know, like for me, a lot of times the games that go into overtime are really memorable. And the game, it was the Knicks game on a Sunday.
Oh my gosh!
I remember.
Yes.
Ooh, yes.
What was that, like 4 overtimes?
Yes, yes. I remember because I specifically said when we got in there, I was like, I don't know about Sunday afternoon games, but at least we get out of here early. Like I was hyped. I was like, at least we getting out here early. Right. And it kept going into overtime and overtime and overtime. And I remember like afterwards, like somebody had asked Dennis Schroeder if he had like experienced anything like that. And he was like, hell no. Like he didn't hold back. Like everybody was just like, what is happening? Like, this is ridiculous. Like we were so tired. We were all so tired from that game.
I remember that. Yakiri, were you at that game?
I was not. I probably sent an intern during that time.
She's big time.
No.
She's big time.
But I there are so many that I can think about, but I think, the most recent ones that was the most memorable was the Kobe Bryant tribute. That to me, I will never forget. You know what I mean? It was just like everybody was so transparent. The mood was different. It was a very somber time for sports, period. But just for us to be a part of that environment, I think that was history as well. That was one of the most memorable moments, recent times for me to, go back and reflect on.
Definitely this season, that was definitely the most memorable.
Yeah,
oh my God,
sure.
That was such a tough game, and
Very.
I remember doing my post game after that, and I was just like I could barely get through it, and I was just like, man.
I know when LP was talking, man.
Oh yeah. I was ready to go to church then, bro.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Pierce after this. But Nia and Malik, do you guys have any like games that stick out in your mind when you think about it?
I would say for me I think it was like February 3rd. I don't know why I remember that date, but the Celtics had came. And I remember I was sitting next to, I think, a friend of mine. Kiri, I think you were on the other side of me. And I mean, it was like the whole city of Boston came to Atlanta for this game.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm sitting around and I'm like, but it was such a, like, even though the Hawks didn't win, it was such a great game. I think Trey had like 42 that night. It was a really, really good game, but I don't think I would ever forget that because now even though I'm really, really young, I've realized like the Celtics fans, they're different. So they're a different breed. But no, it was a really good experience just to see like how much they love the Celtics and be in their environment. So yeah.
There's a lot of history in that Celtics fan base. And there's a lot of history between the Hawks and the Celtics.
Yeah.
That goes like back to beyond our age, so that thing is always going to be like this. How about you?
It's got to be that Bulls game. Trey's rookie season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when I first got in the arena, it was really quiet, nobody. It was the Hawks and the Bulls. What did you expect? Just another one of those, another game on a Friday night. But they were going back and forth, and then Trey hit that shot at the end. And I'm telling you, I'm talking about everybody went crazy. I'm talking about the media row went crazy. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And Trey doing this is my city. Just seeing all of that, it was like that was like I'm here moment for Trey. Like, this is my city. Like, I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment. And for those who like, so the etiquette, the protocol is when you're on media row, you're not supposed to really clap or celebrate. All of that went out the window that game.
Right, exactly.
Talking about the overtime game, even the overtime game.
True.
Game, I remember I had video, and who was I sitting beside? I don't know if I was sitting beside John from DNA Sports or whoever. I remember I was videotaping Carmelo, and I was just yelling like I was a fan. I was like, "You better double him! You better double him!" Breaking all the media guidelines, right? And because y'all know sometimes I can get unhinged, right? Especially when Flip City does halftime. But
Yakiri.
I know I love Flip City, man.
Yes.
But for me, it would have to be, of course, the Knick game, like Jameelah said. But I was there covering the Al Horford putback during the playoffs against, I think it was the Wizards.
It was the Wizards.
Yeah. When I tell you that I thought the roof was going to come off, that place was so loud. And, like you said, Malik, it was just like a moment, you know what I'm saying? Back then, I think, Jameelah, you remember when they used to put us up in the hockey box?
Oh, yeah.
Like on the ninth floor. So, like, press seating for, like, those who weren't, like, top tier media. Like, we had to sit, like, in the it was a ninth floor media box. Yeah, it was like on the ninth floor, and you had to like kind of look over to like look down on the giant. But that's a whole nother story. But that Al Horford putback was definitely one of my moments that I think about. Just top memories. And Trey, I'm sure he's gonna have many more memories to go as he progresses in his years. Want to switch lanes again and talk a little bit about Coach Pierce. And now Malik and I have a joke, that we always go back, and he always talks about me going to battle with some of these Hawks fans about Coach Pierce, because sometimes y'all know how I do, and Yakiri gets mad and Yakiri tries to hold me, and she's like, "Professor, I'm not sitting beside you because you are out." Right. I be going back and forth with folks about Coach Pierce, and I have my thoughts about it, but I want to hear you guys start. And let me start with Yakiri since I called you out. What do you guys thoughts about Coach Pierce, man? Let's talk about Coach Pierce a little bit.
I absolutely love Coach Pierce. I mean, just to have an African-American head coach for the Atlanta Hawks, to me, that's major. Coach Pierce is very approachable. He's one of those coaches that if you need to do an interview, he won't tell you no. I remember when the season first started this year, it was a press conference. I can't remember which, we've been to so many, but I remember afterwards, Coach Pierce went to each individual one of us and shook our hands and, just made himself, just welcoming to all of us. So again, Coach Pierce, I'll say hands down, considering, Coach Bud, you guys were more hands-on with Coach Bud, but I definitely love this coach. And I hope and pray that, he'll be with us for a very long time.
So did you cover Coach Bud and Yakiri at all?
Off and on. The first 2 years, it was off and on. So I wasn't there like dedicated until like that third year when y'all were like, gosh, Yakiri, you at every single game. Yeah.
That's what you got to do though. But people like, yo, man, like how you get in with the Hawks? I was like, yo, man, like they put me on them game by game credentials, and I requested every single game that year.
Every single game, right?
Every game. That's it.
Like there's a hustle and there's a grind to it that folks talk about, but like they don't really want to do it.
Right. Yeah. They just want to jump in and go to the big names.
Yeah, and like it doesn't work like that. Like folks was like, yo, man, how can I get the even folks that had credentials, they were like, how can I get the season credential? I was like, well, you just got to be consistent, Yeah. They know, to it. But what do you guys thoughts on Coach Pierce?
I'll say first of all, as a coach, I think he's doing what he was brought in to do. Like he's developing the young guys, like Cam and Dre and even Bruno, like playing all those minutes in their first year. Like he's developing them. He's giving them confidence. He's allowing them to grow within their positions, even to kind of challenge them to play with outside of their positions, to play different roles and to kind of speak up. Like he's challenging each and every one of them individually. And I feel like that's why he was brought here. Like he was brought here because these young guys need some guidance. They need somebody that's going to allow them to grow. Like we know the older guys on the team, they're only here for a certain reason. So I don't know. I understand sometimes why he gets scrutinized, but I feel like it's a little much because I feel like the expectations are a little high. Like, I don't know what people are thinking this team is supposed to be doing, but it's like, they're supposed to be growing. They're supposed to be showing growth, and that's what they're doing. Like, look at Cam from the beginning of the year till when the season ended. Like, come on now, like that alone should show you that something is working.
Yeah.
So,
and let me ask you, the Young Bucks, Malik and Nia, as somebody, and you guys know, I've gone to bat for Coach Pierce many times. As you guys you covered the Hawks for however long you guys have covered, do you see a difference now between looking at games and looking at the teams through like a media eye and those who look at it through like a fan eye? Like there's a difference, and it's not like you're better. You just have a different perspective because you've been in the locker room. You see how guys interact off the record. You see how Coach Pierce is in press conferences that the normal fan doesn't have. Talk about that difference between being in the media as opposed to, just a regular fan.
I think it's more, you start to realize things more. You start to pay attention to detail. Just with Coach Pierce himself, like I just like hearing him talk. Just like you guys say, Vince Carter can talk for a minute and it's just insightful. You can listen to Coach Pierce for a minute and it hits you really. Like it feels like you can relate to him kind of. And the way he talks about the players and whatnot, it really means a lot. And when you go in the locker room, you hear the players talk, like John and Trey, Vince, like they all, if you just really sit back and listen, like they're really students of the game and they really just like bounce off of each other. Honestly, it's really, when you're really in the media, you just start to really just focusing on things that you hear and you just keep on listening and you learn a lot.
I don't think people understand how hard it is to be a coach, and especially on a professional level. This is his first head coaching position on the professional level. So just to see how far he's brought this team from what we were 3-4 years ago to now is a huge difference. And of course, we talk about, we have these young guys, like he's developing these guys to be the best they're going to be in the next 2 years. And I can say sometimes with the decision making, with substitutions and stuff like that. But I mean, just like our players are growing, he's growing too as a coach. Mm-hmm. And one thing I can say about Coach Lloyd Pierce is that he is a class act all around. And he is going to bring this team in and put them on the best plan and program. And I guarantee you right now, as we're sitting in quarantine, he's thinking about what is going to be next for this team. Yeah. So when these fans, they criticize him and they talk down on him and say, he needs to go, why don't you try and be a coach for a professional team at that? It's tough. Right. But he's doing a really, really excellent job. And I'm not even saying that just to be biased, but I mean, I think he's an excellent coach all around great person. Right. He loves and knows the game of basketball, and he knows how to use each of his players on his roster.
Mm-hmm. And it's like when you talk about Coach Pierce, and when you think back to that roster that they had in the beginning of the season, like, we're not finna call no names. We're not finna call nobody out. But that roster was some hot butter garbage. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so y'all know me, I would go back and forth. Sometimes when I had time with Hawks Twitter, I would be like, so what did you expect? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know Jameelah, sometimes she would send me text messages and I run stuff the wrong way because y'all know I don't pull my tongue sometimes. And I could be that guy, but it's okay because I'm okay with me.
I'm okay with me. Okay in my chill.
But it's funny because me and Malik would laugh all the time at the different folks I would go back with on Twitter. But it was all love. And it was just like, I never wanted to come across as like I was better. I just had a different perspective, Yeah. And, it's all love. So shout out to Coach Pierce. Hope he's doing well, his lovely wife and his lovely family. He seems like a family man. He loves the game of basketball.
Right.
The city really needs to get behind him. There's nothing wrong with criticism.
He does so much. I'm sorry. He just does so much, not only for the players' development as far as basketball, but for their development as far as like their mind outside of basketball. Like you don't even see we don't even see a lot of what he does and what he introduces these guys to. Like it's incredible the kind of history that he shows them and just how he's able to kind of like talk to each one and know what each one is going through. Like, come on, there's a lot of guys to be in their personal lives and kind of understanding what each issue or whatever they're going through. Like, it's crazy. And he is such a good person as far as how he deals with other people. Like, I remember when he first joined the team, and I think I did my first, I don't know what it was their little practice thing I think they had, like at the practice facility. Yeah, and I think that was my first time talking to him or something, but I knew him like through Twitter. And I was like, "Oh, coach, can I ask you a question?" And he was like, "Yeah, Jameelah, what's up?" And I was like,
he knows me.
I was like, a coach is not calling me by my name like ever. Like, what? I was like, how do you know my name? Okay. So like that alone, like that just kind of showed me what kind of person he is. Like just the kind of time he takes to know people and to kind of get to know people and understand people. Like you can't get that. You can't get that with a lot of coaches. Like that's incredible. Like
that is amazing. I think one memory that I can say about Coach, just piggybacking off of Jameelah, his community give back is big as well. Yes. He gives back to the community a lot. And I remember one particular interview, I think you and I was there, Jameelah, the spades night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so
I never got that press release, but it's all good. You know, we ain't bitter. I'm gonna let you finish though.
Whatever. But no, I remember doing that interview and I said something to the fact, and I don't want to quote him verbatim, you know, you're giving back to the community, and he switched it around. He was like, I am the community. So it just lets you know, that he doesn't put himself on a high horse. You know, he said he's here in Atlanta. He wants to give back to this city that he is coaching a team for, and he is a part of Atlanta. So I definitely I'm just honored to just be able to cover the Atlanta Hawks and be able to build a relationship with
dope to see his growth. It's dope to see his growth as well. Like,
absolutely.
Absolutely. He's definitely a class dude and just a man of integrity. And I don't know how many of you guys were there when and Jameelah was there, because I had talked to her about it when the Morehouse kids were there. And typically Morehouse brings a group of journalism students to about maybe 2 games a year, maybe like in the spring and the fall, whatever. And a lot of the times they're not really given the access. They're not given the locker room access. They go to the game, they write their story. And, you know, but this year they were able to sit in on the coach's press conference. And a lot of times this journalism student, they were just sitting back, you know, just really quiet and just like, the presser, like before you guys know, when you speak up in the presser, it's daunting. Like it's tough. Like when you first do it, like, I mean, we've been doing it for years. So it's like, it ain't no thing now. But when you first ask that question and like, cause I remember one time I thought I had like a seizure or something. I was like,
yeah. It's like your heart is just beating out your chest.
And Coach Bud was gracious enough to kind of like, well, you know, he just kind of cut me off and like answered it. But it's tough to ask the question. And the Morehouse kids were sitting in the back, and there was like a pause, and he said, "Any questions from you guys in the back, from the Morehouse guys?" And I just thought that was so dope that he recognized who was in the building, and like the fact that, you know, it's not easy to ask these questions because you're on live TV.
Right.
You know, and I just thought that was just like a dope moment for him to show what kind of guy he is. Shout out to our guy Rashad Milligan in the chat. He said, ask Malik about Chandler Parsons. Do you have like a Chandler Parsons story that we don't know about? Is he have love for Chandler?
So before the season started, they had picked him up, and I had wrote a piece about the one Hawk that nobody's talking about. And I thought Chandler Parsons was going to be this dude that just comes in and be the glue guy and off the bench, you know, and it didn't turn out the way I expected. Well. That is real bad, man.
Malik.
Oh man.
Man.
Hey, appreciate the effort.
E for effort.
Hey, Hey,
Definitely.
shout out to Rashad though, man. That's guys. Shout out to those in the chat. Shout out to those in the chat. I see Raphael there, my boy Fred, Elijah Thompson, brother Bob, Derek, everybody in the chat. Shout out to y'all, man. Yeah, man. The chain. Hey, and I tell you, I had a similar thing like that. One time, I wrote something about how Tim Duncan coming out of Wake Forest was kind of too skinny for the NBA. I was like, yeah, man, this Tim Duncan kid, I don't know about him.
He's not going to be good. It's not going to be good.
That age well either.
Age well.
Oh, man. And we're wrapping up, man. But I wanted to ask you guys as we start to wind things down, looking to next year, and we're all we're assuming that next year we're, going to be ready to go and have a new season and everything. What are some things, and you guys just jump in there as you feel, what are some things that you feel that this team, this Atlanta Hawks team needs to kind of take that next step to the next level, whether it be a certain type of player or that they just need more experience? What do you guys think about when you look at this team for the next year?
I need someone with that dog mentality.
Right.
That dog. I always said that. Go ahead.
That dog mentality, like somebody like we need like a Patrick Beverly or just who's gonna get out there. They're gonna get those loose balls. They're gonna get on the floor. Just like space. To show your presence is out there for people to like take this program a little bit more serious. Like, okay, like we're playing the Hawks today. I know one thing about them, they're gonna hustle. And they have that one particular player who's gonna get it done defensively and offensively.
Right.
And currently right now, I mean, gosh, we have some incredible players, but we don't have that person right now who's just that hustler. Like always like is gonna hustle, they gonna talk their crap and they're gonna back it up.
Yeah,
no doubt. And I've said that many times, Nia. I've said they need that dog. That 60-win season when they was like really rolling, they had two dogs on that squad, Damari Carroll and Tabo Cephalosha. Then when the NYPD broke Tabo's leg and Damari got hurt, they lost that dog. And it was just like LeBron came in, it was a wrap. Like, but they had them dogs.
Yeah.
But I'm with that. I'm with that.
Professor, question for you. You still feel that chemistry with the team is off?
Now, I said that to you like during the beginning of the. I said the chemistry was the roster was different, right? And I think that going forward, that's going to be something that they're going to have to work out. Like next season, they're going to have to work out the kinks of what it looks like to have a Clint Capella and a John Collins on the floor at the same time, because this isn't 2K. You can't just plug it in and it work. Like, and I know, and I promise you this, I'm gonna say this right now. I know I'm gonna get into battles with folks on Twitter saying, well, oh man, we paid all this money for Capella and this dude only got 7 points and 6 rebounds. Folks never want to let the process take, flight. So it's gonna be an adjustment. I don't think it's gonna be a problem, Yakiri, but I just think it'll be an adjustment for the chemistry.
And I'd like to see consistency. I mean, that's
big.
I mean, you get consistency from Trey and John, and other guys are developing, but that's key. Like if you can know what you're gonna get from your players pretty much every night, every game, whatever, then you kind of know what you're working with. But I mean, they're still young, so. Yeah,
but like we can only use that they're still young for like only a little bit longer.
I know.
Like, I mean, last year, and I would talk to John. I'd be like, "Yo, man, like you're a 20-10 guy. Like that's the expectation now.
Yeah.
These games where you come out with like 8 and 7, like that's a no go. Nope. Like you are a 20-10 guy.
You gotta
that's what you got to be. But I like the coach. I like I like Trae Young and what he has going on, and I like the ownership. Shout out to Tony Ressler for paying all of these employees during this run. Like that's big.
He was like one of the first too.
Yeah. I mean, Mark Cuban, like there was one. He not happy with that, but that was big. So shout out to Tony Ressler. They're very creative with what they do as far as the team is concerned. But just shout out to all of those guys at the Hawks organization, man. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been fun, man. I enjoyed kicking it with you guys.
It's awesome.
Yes. Man. It's good seeing y'all. Raphael in the chat said, "Hey, I miss my Hawks media family." Shout out to Raphael.
Shout out 3-point conversion.
3-point conversion. The dude is everywhere, man. Super Bowl, everywhere. But this has been awesome, man. We definitely got to do it again sometime. I appreciate you guys for coming on to my little vehicle known as the Hawksbeat podcast. If you're watching it, make sure you like the page. Check out their sites. Let's go around the horn and you guys just plug what you guys got going on so folks can see that, listen to the podcast and that check us out. So let's start with Malik and just kind of go around the horn.
All right. You can see me on Twitter at _Malik ATL. I do a lot of writing. I'm doing a lot of Falcon stuff now since that's the big NFL's the big thing and the draft's about to come on. So been doing a lot of draft coverage. So check me out there.
What's up?
Okay, I'll go next. You can follow me on all social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter at Nia on Air. That is N as in Nancy, because I know a lot of people think I'm saying Nia, but it's Nia on Air. Hey, the 2020 WNBA season is going to still happen, hopefully. So stay tuned with me. Yeah, shout out to the Atlanta Dream. Yes, so stay tuned with me for your Atlanta Dream coverage.
That's what's up. And you're doing a great job on your YouTube stuff, man. Keep that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Took a lot.
Okay, I'll go. Okay, guys, you can find us at chicksinthesports.com, Twitter, Chicks in the Sports, Instagram, Chicks in the Sports. Looking forward to the WNBA season, which will begin. We got 4 new awesome players, and we're looking for a great season. Hopefully, media will be there. So
let me tell you something. If people are competing in the city of Atlanta, Chicks in the Sports will send somebody to cover that event.
Somebody needs to be somebody there.
Somebody gonna be there.
Playing 3-on-3.
Somebody gonna be there.
Somebody to cover the game. It's all love. Lady J.
And my blog is atlhawksfans.com, and on social media it's at JameelahJ. That's JAM as in Mary, EELAH NBA. So like the NBA. So, that's it.
Well, I appreciate all you guys, man. It's been an honor covering the games with you guys for these years, all the jokes and all the stuff, all the good times we've had. It's been dope seeing all of you grow. Like I've legit seen all of you grow. Jameelah picked up a camera one day and she just became like Sports Illustrated and was just like, her pictures are all over the interweb now.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's good seeing her grow, and Nia, Malik, I've seen you guys mature. And when y'all first came in, y'all were quiet, and now y'all up in the press, asking all the questions,
being all in
the video. But shout out to Yakiri, man. She's always a life of the party with her introspective questions. Yeah. She's always just a dope spirit to have around. So I got much love for all of y'all.
Thank you, E.
We love you too.
Same way.
We love you.
Emily.
Love you, E.
Hey, y'all know how to get at me, man. I'm at Hawksbeat on Twitter, and y'all know where I be. But again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming on this call, and I guess that's it, man. Any parting words?
For me, E, no more AI jokes, okay?
First of all, okay, before we go, I don't know why she doesn't.
Oh no!
Don't do it.
You guys know. Well, they don't know. Allen Iverson was like God to me growing up, right? And we were at a covering the Hawks game, and me and Don, shout out to Don from DNA Sports, Allen Iverson walked behind us, and I felt his aura. I don't know why Yakiri refuses to believe this story. I felt the man's aura, and I was like, yo, Don, that's AI. And Don was like, yep, sure is. And then we see him courtside, and I still have the picture at the game when he was at the thing. But that's my AI story, man. But, we go back like this, me AI. But we boys now. We boys. So also shout out to our guy Elijah Thompson checking us out at Lil Muggy on Twitter. He said he appreciates all the coverage that we do for Shout out to our guy, everybody in the chat room. This podcast should be available.
My guy from I was about to call it Phillips. From State
Phillips
Farm.
Arena. State Farm Arena.
Oh.
I know. Shout out to
Shout
Phillips
out to
Arena,
the
man.
State Farm
Yeah.
staff
Shout out.
and everybody. I miss you guys. I miss all y'all.
Real.
No
Yes.
doubt, man. No doubt. So you guys be safe, and we will see
Wait,
you on.
Shout out to E, because you've been hyping us up the whole time.
Let's hype you up.
We gotta hype you up because you
Exactly.
be out here post game, pre game. You taking over
He said,
questions.
give
Like,
it to
come
me.
on now.
Give it to me.
Gas me up.
You
Gas
done
me up.
grown like crazy.
Oh,
Like, you hyping us up. You done
99
grown like
cents.
crazy.
Oh,
Okay.
Come on now.
Hey, man. I tell you, man, it's been a journey of growth for all of us, you know.
True that.
And I remember, like, you know, I was scared to ask questions in the pressers, man. Like, you know, I was like, am I allowed to ask a question? Now it's like, I'm like almost a snob about it. Like, where's the microphone?
I don't need it.
Question. Garrett, where
Right.
you at? But I mean, this has been a joy. Just, you know, this access that we've been given, it's beyond any monetary, you know, thing. Because a lot of us do this in addition to the jobs that we work and other things that we got going on. So it's been a huge blessing. And shout out to the Hawks, man. They're just a world-class organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout
And
out.
man, shout out to the food too, man. We can't forget about the food now.
Man.
Can't forget about the food. Food is amazing.
Sometime.
Food is
Shout out to
amazing.
the
Fried
chef.
chicken that
Shout out to
day.
the chef, man. I don't know
No,
who be
I
in there, but they be in
appreciate
there.
them. I don't eat all that stuff because
Yes. But the
Yeah, but
salad
it's
is on
the
point,
salad be
though.
salads be on point.
The salads do be on point.
Man.
And when the drink machine is working, it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
got ice cream and they hook
Ice
it up.
cream.
They hook it up.
Cookies.
They
Oh
hook it up.
man.
Yeah. Shout out to them cookies, man. I mean,
Shout out to the cookies.
You gotta get them
put them in the
fresh.
bag with a
Put
sauce
Malik
in the
into the
can.
draft.
Gotta get the
Put
cookies when
Malik
they're
into the
fresh.
draft.
Yeah, correct. Just about to start. I appreciate you guys. I'll be in touch with y'all, and maybe we gotta do this again, man. I appreciate y'all.
Right.
Appreciate
Much
it.
love.
Thanks.
See you guys.
See.
Bye.